Hey guys, welcome to GCT, where I read out the best stories on Reddit, so you don't have to. The funny, shocking, and satisfyingly juicy. Today's video is Sussy Sunday, where we try and find the truth. Our first story comes from the Pro Revenge subreddit. Revenge on a client who tried to throw me under the bus. Posted by Called in the 90s. I was pushing 40 and had learned a lot of lessons in my more than 10 years of legal practice. But one of the most important lessons I learned was from an older lawyer that I worked for as a summer student after second year of law school. A lawyer has 3 duties, he told me. First to himself, second to the court, and last to the client. Always make sure that you come first and the client comes last. The reason? Because clients will F you, he said. They'll throw you under the bus without thinking twice. I should have stayed with this lawyer, but being young and an idiot, I had to go work downtown, and I'm still downtown now. But fortunately for me, I remembered this lesson, and it came in handy many years later, when a client really did try to throw me under the bus. My client was this mid-sized company that did this and that and owned a few things here and there. Not big enough to be listed, but it did have a pretty sizable real estate portfolio. And one day, one of the buildings they owned burned to the ground. The company wanted to collect on the insurance, so they told Frank, a veteran salaryman, to deal with it. Frank was close to 60 and thought he knew what he was doing. He didn't need me to help him with the insurance claim. He told me he had everything under control. Besides, lawyers are expensive. Some guys really get off on not paying legal fees, and Frank was one of those guys who gloated over every penny that he managed to not pay the lawyers. I dealt with Frank a lot, and he always nickeled and dimed me. The insurer is going to F you, I told Frank. It was only by luck that I even knew about the fire and the loss because Frank hadn't asked for my help. He'd just let it slip one day. And since then, I'd kept on top of him, trying to get him to smarten up. I'd had to fight to get him to send me the proof of the loss form to make sure he hadn't messed that up. Frank messed up a lot, and I sometimes wondered how he even had a job. But the proof of the loss was okay at least, so that was one less thing to worry about. You don't know that, he said. I could tell he just wanted to get me off the phone. I'm paid to know when insurers are trying to screw my clients, I said. And the insurer is going to screw you. They've been stringing you along for ages with requests and questions and paperwork, but they're not going to pay you, not unless you sue them. But Frank said he knew what he was doing and that it was all under control, and besides, he got along well with the adjuster. The limitation period expires in 2 weeks, I said, and once that 2 weeks is passed, it'll be too late to sue. The moment the limitation expires, they'll stop taking your calls. You'll get a final email saying, sorry, you're out of time, and that'll be that. Don't leave this till the last minute. Let me sue right now, and you'll have the money in no time. Frank was like, sure, fine, whatever. Don't bother me, I got this, blah blah blah. And he got off the phone as soon as he could. I sent him the usual email with clear warnings and recommendations, which he ignored. I sent the email again, and then again as the limitation period approached, and again a couple days before the deadline. I'm going to be at trial and you won't be able to reach me, my final email said, but you have to sue. You have other firms on your list, so pick one and sue. He didn't bother to reply, and I went off to my trial. The trial lasted a couple weeks, and no email from Frank. Then a month passed, and another month, still no email. I figured he must have sorted things out. Maybe Frank was right after all, I thought. And then my phone rang. It was Frank. Remember that fire insurance thing we spoke about? We'd only spoken about it like a dozen times. I figured he was calling up to gloat, so I cut to the chase. So they paid out? That's great, Frank, you're right. He asked me what I was talking about, and could he see a copy of the claim? What claim? I said. The claim against the insurer, you know, that claim. Does that mean the insurer didn't pay? I said. He hung up on me, and a few minutes later, my computer dinged, and there was Frank's email. Talking about how we spoke, and how he told me to sue, and that he was worried when I hadn't sent him a copy of the claim, so he was following up. I emailed him back saying, I take it the insurer didn't pay you, just like I told you they wouldn't. And now that the limitation period is expired, they told you to jump in a lake, leaving you with a loss in the millions. Is that it? I'd made a mistake by not going over Frank's head when he wouldn't listen to me. But if I'd gone over Frank's head, I'd have never received another file from him, so I didn't. But that was then, and this was now, so I CC'd Frank's boss, and his boss's boss, Plus, I CC'd Bill, the client's in-house counsel. Bill acknowledged my email right away and called me later that day. "Frank messed up," he said. "We know that. He's an idiot. So what do we do now?" So his excuse didn't work. Nope. Bill told me how they'd summoned Frank to the boardroom, but his story didn't add up, given all the warnings I'd sent him. Besides, he'd have had no reason to keep emailing the insurer if he'd told me to sue. Once the file goes to legal counsel, Frank's role was over. The company knew that Frank was BSing them. "So that's it then," said Bill. "We just lost $1 million bucks?" "It's okay," I said, explaining that when I realised that Frank was going to F up, I issued a claim against the insurer. Because I'd made Frank send me the proof of the loss earlier, I'd had enough information to sue to preserve the cause of action. Not a great claim, short on details, but good enough. "You sued without instructions?" said Bill. "Lawyers aren't supposed to sue without instructions, because if you do that, you're personally liable for whatever costs the other side incurs. It's a big deal to sue without instructions." "Yup," I said. "I sued without instructions." I pulled up a copy of the claim and emailed it to him as we spoke. "It's a little rough," I said, "but we can always amend." "Thank God," said Bill. "Can I leave it with you?" Of course he could. The insurer was a sitting duck, and I knew I could collect from them, no problem. A few days later, I got a call from another guy who worked for the client. A guy I didn't normally deal with. They had a situation and needed my help. "I usually deal with Frank," I said. "What's up?" What was up was that Frank got called into another meeting where they handed him a one-page letter, and then he put his little office things into a box, and security walked him past his co-workers to the elevator and escorted him downstairs to the parking lot. Bye-bye, Frank. He was too old to get another job, or at least not a decent one. It was a life-changing event for Frank, but for me, he was just another anecdote, a cautionary tale that I tell young lawyers sometimes over beers, often too many. I wasn't trying to get revenge on Frank, not at all, and I would have felt a bit sorry for him if he hadn't been trying to throw me under the bus. But the guy who replaced him was great and never nickeled and dimed me, so it was all good. Our next post comes from the Two Hot Takes subreddit. Am I crazy? Husband's being weird since travelling for work. Posted by Bubba309. Background. I've been with my husband for over 10 years, married close to 5. He started travelling for work and we have each other's location on our phone. The problem is that when he's travelling, his location is always incorrect to what he tells me versus what it's actually showing. It only happens when he's travelling. It makes sense if it was only a few blocks off, but it's showing several miles off. When he's in the same city as me, it's pinpoint accurate. Also, when he's in a meeting at work while travelling, it's also very accurate. It's only when he's in the hotel that it's showing that it's wrong. I addressed it with him and he blew up, called me crazy and snooping, etc. This was a big argument for us. Also, since he started travelling more, we're less frequently intimate. He sometimes initiates in the middle of the night randomly, but has said some weird things that wouldn't make sense in a married monogamous relationship. Recently, he's guilted, yelled, and accused me of checking his location all the time. I just check once in a while because my gut says something is weird. His location shows him at someone's home, nightclubs, bars, etc. when he says he's sleeping. Again, these locations are very far from where he said he was staying. He also gets angry if I peer over and maybe glance at his phone while he's texting. He blows up at that. He also doesn't like to hold my hand anymore, kiss me or cuddle. We have no kids, I'm younger, and we're both very fit. I just don't know what to do. My gut keeps telling me that something is off. I would love some advice from this group. Down in the comments, Boss Status in Real Life says, my phone does this really weird thing where it shows that I'm at a strip club, crack house, and bars all the time, but I'm always at church. It's super weird. He's cheating. Drunk on Red Cordial says, you'd think he'd have the sense to cheat in his own hotel, seeing as he knows that OP is monitoring his location. Sorry, OP. Honestly, I can't see any innocent explanation for this. Sorry, OP, but from your post, it kinda sounds like you already know the truth. Our next story comes from the Relationship Advice subreddit. My 26 female, boyfriend 28 male, hid his sister's wedding from me. Posted by a throwaway account. Too long didn't read. Boyfriend of 3 years kept his sister's wedding a secret from me, and I feel like this is a huge thing to hide. He feels sorry, but claims it was a lot for him to process, so he kept blocking it out of his mind. We've been in a long-distance relationship for 3 years. We've met multiple times and plan on closing the gap next year. We haven't met each other's families yet, but plan to get to that soon. Most recently, we took a vacation together. My boyfriend had a family wedding to go to recently. It's a 3-day affair, and it's not his first wedding that he's been to like this, so I didn't question it. When I asked who was getting married, I remember him saying a cousin or keeping it vague with family. I didn't think anything of it. After the wedding, we video called, and he tells me about it. He explains it was actually his sister's wedding that he just attended, and I'm in shock. Why wouldn't he tell me about this sooner? She's been engaged for a whole year, and they just got married. That means he's been keeping this a secret from me for a whole year. I remained calm, and he explains it's a lot for him to process, so he just pushed it out of his mind and never told me. He apologized, but I feel so hurt and oddly betrayed. I would never keep something like this from him. Would I be overreacting by getting upset and thinking that this is completely unacceptable? Down in the comments, Rosebud2911 says, "Sorry to say, but are you sure that you're not the side chick?" What exactly does he need to process? It's been 3 years, long distance, and you've never had any contact with his family. Babes, that's like the perfect setup for a side chick. Please go with your gut on this one. And now it's time for your unethical life hack. Fast food employees, instead of pooping on the customer's food for poor working conditions, rip the company off by hooking everyone up. Posted by She Wasn't Into the Blues. I used to work at a Wendy's, and it was one of the most toxic work environments I've ever been in. My manager was constantly and systematically harassing me from the moment I got in. The pay was awful, and the work was heavy. Instead of not caring about making good food for the customer, cause I was pissed, I ripped the company off and hooked every mother ever up. Extra fries, extra nuggies, extra bacon, extra patties, extra random stuff in the bag, the layer of those last few fries at the bottom of the bag, shakes, free drinks, etc. I never got caught and ripped them off for thousands of dollars in the course of my brief stay. Also, F Wendy's and stay the F away from the chili man. The meat is literally an accumulation of the burnt or effed up patties that have sat there all day and then are cut up the next day and added to the chili. Down in the comments, Holy Sugar says, "I worked in a deli and people ordered food by the pound. If they asked for a pound and I accidentally cut a pound and a half, I'd charge it for the pound and give the half pound for free. I just don't like wasting food, so I'd rather give the extra food than throw it out. Some workers will follow the book and just throw the extras away and call a company loss. I just believe that food shouldn't be wasted. I've always strived to be accurate, but I still make mistakes. And my mistakes mean more food for you." So I'm not advocating that anyone actually does this. I have a mate who got fired from a club he worked at for giving free drinks to all his friends. They caught it on camera. Also, don't do this with Karens, or they'll think they're entitled to the hookup and throw a tantrum when the next person doesn't give it to them and complain to the manager, telling them that you hooked them up last time, basically dobbing you in. Remember, I post new content every day, so subscribe for more juicy tea.